Welcome back to the Frozen Sodium Throne. We've been away for a week. This was due to the South African government basically screwing Accolonn out of electricity, which is friggin' amazing. You know, we're in 2022 and somehow governments can't even keep the lights on. I think that's bloody impressive. How you doing, Accolonn?
I'm doing good, bro. I'm doing good. At least these days I'm not suffering alone, right? Europe is having some problems with electricity. Maybe you guys will experience some load shedding. We've got the schedule for you. We already have the app. You guys, you're covered. South Africa have been we've been testing this thing since 2008, so we're good.
I've been like so deep into video games. I don't even know anything about energy crisis. I don't even listen to mainstream news. One of these days, I'm just gonna come in here and be like, why is there no power? It's like, what's going on?
Easy.
I've saw in the news the other day that Spain was like plugging there's water that comes over from Spain to our hydropower plants, and they just like closed the they closed the faucet, and we're like, hey, what's going on? What are you guys doing? Don't do that. That's not cool.
I mean, I think everyone, like, it's every man for himself right now, right?
Yeah.
In Europe, it's becoming harder and harder for the European Union to keep countries pulling the same way. Because a lot of countries are upset. There's countries that have a lot of nuclear power. They don't really care about the oil being not coming or the gas not coming. And they have to pay more. So it's a big fuck up. Anyways, the point is, without getting into real life politics too much, the point is South Africa we've piloted this for you. We have the apps. We know what the schedule should look like. You guys don't have to worry. We've got this down. For once, South Africa can be the world leader in something.
The world leader in teaching people how to do load shedding. I'm not sure.
Exactly.
Not sure how I feel about this.
I mean, I'm getting a full solar system at an astronomical cost. Probably December or end of December. It's going to be close to $50,000 just to get the solar system.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, so that's what it's going to cost me to, and I am getting it. I have to. I can't keep going like this because I can't get my work done. 3-4 times a day, I don't have electricity. How the fuck am I supposed to work? So yeah, I have to take out $50K. Not taking out all of it. I've saved up about half of it already. So the rest I'm just going to borrow from the bank and just be like, fuck it. You know, I'll pay that back.
Live in debt.
At least then I'm off the grid, right?
Yeah.
I don't owe anyone anything. I can fucking run my life.
That's the way to do it. And I'm pretty sure that over there in South Africa, you get a lot of sun. So it's not like you're going to have a lot of problems managing that particular power source, I would imagine.
So I'm moving to a place called Gordon's Bay. And in Cape Town, Gordon's Bay is known as the place where the wind is born. Because there's always wind, and that wind sort of blows over the rest of Cape Town, but the wind comes from there. So it is fucking constantly windy. So I'm probably going to see if I can get like a hybrid system with solar panels as well as wind turbines.
Yeah, and a wind turbine as well. Yeah, dude, just go double. Let's go.
Yeah. As much fucking electricity as I can generate.
I think that there's also like eventually a point that you reach, because I have a friend of mine in the Netherlands that has solar, and he tells me that like he actually sells electricity back to the companies because it produces so much.
Oh yeah, they've just passed the law that makes that now possible in the Western Cape, at least.
Oh,
we're allowed to generate more electricity than what we use, and they will actually buy it from you. So most countries in the world do what they call energy credits. So you can sell it back to the grid, and then you get credits for if you need to use power from the grid again.
That's like the GameStop in stores. It's like you get in-store credit.
Exactly the same. The Western Cape have now changed it to where they said, okay, never mind, we'll pay you cash. So when you sell us electricity, we will pay you in your bank account every month. We'll pay you X amount per unit of electricity that you generate.
Bro, screw content creation, just like make power.
I mean, they're going to pay you little, right? Because they want to make profit on the electricity that they sell again. So they're probably not going to give you that much. But yeah, I mean, all in all, it's what I have to do in order to fucking get
just a function.
Get some electricity, yeah. Because my government can't fucking do it. Anyways, yeah.
While we weren't able to record an episode due to these situations, a lot of stuff has been happening in the world of Warcraft. Namely, Wrath of the Lich King launched, bro. It was a rough 2 days for me. I'll tell you what, it was a very rough 2 days for me. I was like, I was feeling that pull. I was like, dude, it's gonna be the last time. It's the last time you can go back to Northrend, and it's gonna be a ton of people there. It'd be amazing. And they launched this system. I don't remember if we talked about this system in the podcast or not, but they launched this system called Heroic Plus. I don't remember if we talked about it.
I don't know. We've never talked about it because I heard it from you for the first time. I didn't even know that was going to be a thing.
Yeah, so Heroic Plus was one of the things that made me like, man, I really wish I had leveled up a character. I really do. Because, like, I don't want to buy a boost. I don't want to directly contribute to Bobby Kotick's yacht through giving him that much money. Listen, I want to give Bobby Kotick as least money as possible just to be able to report on the video game. That is my commitment. I'm not giving him a single dime more. So I don't want to buy a boosted character. So, but the Heroic Plus system, what it does is like, so the game's going to launch, and then I don't know when, but like on first phase, Xmas comes out, and it works just like it did kind of like back in the day. You go into Xmas, you get loot, you could do dungeons, you get loot, When Ulduar comes out, the change that Heroic Plus does is that it adds a new difficulty into Heroic Dungeons, which is not Mythic, it's Heroic Plus. And what that does is Xmas 10, because the difficulty back in Wrath of the Lich King was 10-25, as in 25 was a little harder. You know, depending on which encounter you're talking about, sometimes people would argue, oh, this one's harder than 10, this, whatever. But
it was supposed to be the same, but it was never the same.
The difficulty progression is supposed to be like 10-man, 25-man, because that also awarded better loot, right? So 10-man and 25-man. There was no heroic or mythic at the time. So what they're going to do is when Ulduar launches, you can go into heroic dungeons. You can activate this additional difficulty Heroic Plus, which does not work like Mythic Plus. It's not like multiple levels. It's just an additional difficulty on top of heroic. And that dungeon will drop loot from Nax 10. And if you go into Nax 10, you'll get loot from Nax 25. And then you can just like seamlessly go into Ulduar. And I'm assuming that obviously when when friggin' Trial of the Crusader launches, that system would increase. So I would expect like, okay, you do Heroic Plus, you get like Ulduar 10 or something like that. You do Ulduar 10, you get Ulduar 25, that type of stuff. And I think
actually an incredible leveling or catch-up mechanic.
Yes.
It's such a cool catch-up mechanic because it doesn't introduce any new systems to convolute the system. It just uses the existing system and says, right, we're now going to give you the opportunity to catch up without having to either run the original dungeons and raids. Finding groups for those can be fucking hard. Although back in the days of Wrath, pretty much all the way to the end, you still had groups running Nax. You still had groups running Ulduar because people just enjoyed it, right? It was just so much fun that people would just go do it anyways. So yeah, I love that. I think it's a great fucking system.
I think it would be a fantastic system to bring to retail, but they haven't talked anything about that. Like, hey, when we launch a new raid, you can get loot from the previous raid from like some kind of additional difficulty, or maybe since we already have the scaling difficulty of Mythic Plus, they could just say, okay, Mythic plus 5 or Mythic plus 8, depending on whatever difficulty arbitrary they find should be the one. It could be like, hey, on this level of Mythic Plus, you start getting loot that comes from the normal mode previous of this raid. There. And then on top of it, you could also be like, oh, and if you go like the plus 10, now you can get loot from the heroic version of the raid. But I don't think they should ever allow you to get maybe mythic level. I don't know. Because again, I haven't played for so long, because you can also get the stuff from the vault as well. So it gets a little bit.
I think mythic is fine too, if it's high enough up in the mythic dungeon roster, right? So if you go plus 20 or plus 25 will give you mythic raiding gear. That's fine, because let's be real, if you're good enough to run a mythic plus 25, you're most likely good enough to run a mythic raid.
Yeah.
Because at 25, it's very difficult, it's very hard, you have to know what the fuck you're doing. And that really has always been my point. Whenever we talk about catch-up mechanics or gear or anything like that in World of Warcraft, my point has always been that I don't like when people are getting gear of a very high item level for content that doesn't require anywhere near the same amount of skill. Because as far as I'm concerned, gear should be skill locked. It should be behind certain skill gates, if you will. So I'm perfectly fine with that. Also, I think it will come to retail if it works in classic Wrath. Why do I say that? Because Blizzard have shown that they're willing to learn from classic. They took so much inspiration for Dragonflight from the classic experience. You know, the idea that the world should be a character and that the world is important for players to actually be in and play, that comes from classic. That is a lesson that they themselves said they learned after looking at how people approach classic and how much fun people had in classic. So yeah, I think personally, and this is rare for me because I don't always praise Blizzard, you know that. Yeah. But I will say, Blizzard is using classic better than I ever could have expected them to use it. Much more than I ever gave them credit for. Because it feels like they're using the classic as an experimental phase for stuff that could maybe work in retail. So they add things in classic because it's okay if you kind of break classic, right? Because it's classic. It's an old game. You can always revert it rather quickly. It's not okay if you break retail because most people aren't going to stick around if you break it because they don't know what's to come. They don't know if it's going to get better. Whereas most people know how good the classic experience was. So if you introduce something that kind of breaks that experience, players will just be like, dude, go back. We just want the original experience. We know how good that was. So you have that sort of a bit more leeway to play around with. Yeah. So I love that they're using the experiments there. And then that which works goes into retail. That doesn't work sort of gets left behind. Like the Classic Plus experience that, in my opinion, is still one of the worst ideas I've ever seen in my life. Like, everyone asked for Classic Plus. Like, everyone wanted Classic Plus. And everyone had an idea of what Classic Plus would look like. Blizzard then goes and says, right, we're going to give you Classic Plus. We're going to do none of the things that you wanted. We'll do this random, let's just start over the whole fucking time.
This season experiment. Of mastery weird thing. Let's go.
But, we'll give you this. You can just do it again. Say, oh yeah, this is not what anyone wanted when we say Classic Plus. But anyways.
So here's something that I actually don't know. I didn't look this up. I maybe should have. Are there any like TBC only servers left? Because I think I heard somewhere that you have to move forward from TBC. Like there's vanilla and there's Wrath, but I don't think there's going to be TBC. I'm not sure.
I mean, I don't know, but I will say that would be stupid.
Yeah,
because at the
weird.
end of the day, it is a classic experience. Some people love classic and they'll stay on classic vanilla. Other people love TBC and they'll stay at TBC. Some people love Wrath and they'll go to Wrath.
The thing is, I think that there wasn't enough people. But again, I don't know. I should have looked this up. This was just something that crossed my mind now, and I didn't look that up, so it's whatever. But what I wanted to ask was like, where do we go from Wrath Classic? And this was one of the things that kind of stopped me from creating a character and starting leveling up Wrath Classic. I was like, where do they go from there? Like, it's just a temporary thing. Like, are they going to go to Cataclysm? They can't possibly be thinking about Cataclysm. They did the survey, so they're probably thinking about Cataclysm. But it's like, bro,
I think
Cataclysm
the survey,
Classic.
To be fair, the survey was Blizzard's. Because Blizzard no longer knows what their players want, the survey was effectively just that. It was to kind of figure out what players wanted. I don't think the survey means that Blizzard wants to do Cataclysm. I think the survey simply means that Blizzard is open to doing Cataclysm if that's what people want. Now, I do think a lot of people are going to want Cataclysm.
Okay.
Enough people probably that Blizzard will do it. Just because, look, there's millions of players. And everyone, my brother, for example, if he got that survey, he would have said absolutely yes. Because Cataclysm, he's a Cataclysm baby. He started in Cataclysm. So for him, Cataclysm is the greatest expansion in the history of World of Warcraft ever.
I feel bad. I feel bad for him, dude. I'm sorry.
Well, he was a PvPer, and PvP in Cataclysm was actually pretty decent. Because he's a pure PvPer. That's basically all he fucking does. Monk PvP. As soon as Mist came out, and Warlock.
That makes sense.
Actually, Paladin in Cataclysm.
That makes sense.
There's a Paladin in Cataclysm. Yeah.
Paladin makes sense. Yeah.
Oh yeah, he started as a Raid Paladin, and he played Raid all the way through Cataclysm, And then as soon as Mist came out, he switched to Monk. So his 2 favorite expansions is Cataclysm and Mist of Pandaria. Because he's a PvPer. He doesn't give a fuck about anything else in the game, right?
Yeah.
He's one of those people that, like, literally in Shadowlands, he started playing because everyone said the PvP is really good in Shadowlands, and then he came to me and was like, listen here, I need this belt. Yeah, but here's the thing, right? He actually enjoyed it. He was loving the PvP. And then he came to me one day and he's like, so I need this belt, but I don't know where it drops. And he reads it to me and it's a legendary item. Like, it doesn't drop from PvP. You have to go do Torghast. And that's going to give you soul ash, and then you can craft it yourself. And he's like, okay, so I have to run this Torghast. How many times do I have to do it? A couple of weeks just to get the soul ash.
Couple of weeks.
And he's like, okay, where do I get the other things? And I'm like, at the auction house. He's like, okay, I don't have gold. Can you give me some gold? I'm like, sure. So I send him the gold, and then he realizes that, so he does it. He does all of it, right? He runs the Torghast. He fucking hates it. But he runs the Torghast. He buys the shit. He makes the thing. And then he's like, no, but the website says it's this item level. I'm like, oh, you have to upgrade it now. So you have to run Torghast every week. And he's like, well, fuck this. And he literally, that minute, uninstalled WoW. He was like, yeah, that's it. I want a PvP. I don't give a fuck about this shit. I just want to kill people. I don't care about Torghast. I don't want to play the auction house because he doesn't have shit gold, right? Yeah. He's a proper PvPer. He doesn't do anything to get gold. He doesn't run any dailies whatsoever. He just wants to get in, queue up for BGs, and then do arenas. That's his life in World of Warcraft. So he quit. This is when I truly realized that Torghast was completely wrong in the way that they implemented it. Yeah. Good idea, bad implementation. Okay, so for what's next, are you asking me what I want next or what I think Blizzard's going to do
What
next?
do you think they're going to do?
They're going to do fucking Cataclysm Classic.
Oh, God, no.
That's what they're going to do. It's the easiest way.
Have you heard the Taliesin theory? Because like I saw a video from Taliesin. I wasn't paying too much attention, I'll be honest, because I had it in the second monitor. But Taliesin was saying that potentially the reason for this survey was so that Blizzard would see features from Cataclysm and kind of bring some of those features over to Wrath.
Okay.
So they'd stay in Wrath, but like use stuff from Cataclysm in Wrath.
I think Cataclysm could be a really decent shoot-off point for Blizzard. So here's what I would do if I was Blizzard. So if we're getting into the realm of a bit of speculation, I would do Cataclysm, but I wouldn't call it Classic. I would call it World of Warcraft Cataclysm. That's it. No Classic. Players are going to go, whoa, what's going on here? Why is this not Classic? Are they just re-releasing the old expansion? The fuck? It launches. All of the zones is now a single continent. There is an actual hub city for the expansion. So it's basically everything that you had in Cataclysm, but a complete continent for people to go play in. Brand new, not brand new, but kind of brand new, right? And from here, you start a new World of Warcraft story. So you use Cataclysm as the jump-off point for a brand new story. Something that goes in a completely different direction. And Cataclysm already offers that with the End Time dungeon, showing what Azeroth could look like if Deathwing won, if Deathwing didn't die. Yeah. So you just have a different point there. One where, say, for example, Deathwing doesn't die. So Deathwing does actually escape. And what would that World of Warcraft look like? That's what I would sort of do if I was World of Warcraft, if I was Blizzard. They're probably not going to do that. They're probably just going to do straight up Cataclysm release and then straight up Mr. Pandaria release.
I think the problem there is like, does Blizzard want to be working on two branches of the same game? I don't think it makes a lot of sense. So I don't know how that would work. Well, it's not two branches of the same game. It's two branches within the same universe, which a lot of companies do all the time, right? You have Games Workshop, they have Warhammer and Warhammer Fantasy, two different universes, but then in Warhammer 40k, they have so many branches of stories. You have the Xenos storylines, you have the Imperium storylines, so you can have World of Warcraft as a world is big enough, as a universe is big enough to support multiple stories within that universe. I would still do, if it was up to me, and again, I need to make this video. It's just I'm always super busy, and like scripting out a video like this for my secondary channel would be a monumental task. But like the whole thing about let's merge. We should merge, and then just like you offer a path forward to the Wrath people into the next expansion after Dragonflight. That's what I would do, but there's a lot of we still have to discuss the lore of it, because like we talked about it before, but like there is a way to do that, and I think would be really interesting. And I think that would be the best way forward. Here's the thing, though. It would be optional.
Yeah.
You don't have to go forward. You could stay back in Wrath, and Blizzard would add like new quest lines and things like that. Like not things like we're going to revamp everything, new content, but like an occasional new zone here and there, kind of like a content patch for Wrath. They would basically maintain Wrath with giving it new content that would be relevant to the retail expansion. It's almost like, imagine there's like a war in the next retail expansion after Dragonflight, and players that are still in Wrath are somehow contributing to it through different quest lines that they're adding into the game and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Which would require less effort on their part to maintain the Wrath side of things, while still basically having the one path forward.
You see, so there's multiple paths that Blizzard can go. Some of these paths have a natural end, and some of these paths are completely open-ended. The one path, the path that I'm sort of scared Blizzard will actually go with, is the path of just releasing Cataclysm, then Mists of Pandaria, then so on and so forth.
Then Shadowlands Classic.
But this is the problem, right? It has a natural end. There's a point where you have now caught up to the main expansion, or at least you've gone to the point where people no longer care about this classic. So this happens right after. Basically, it happens right after Mists of Pandaria. No one gives a fuck about Wall of Draenor Classic. So now you're going to skip Wall of Draenor Classic. You're going to go straight to Legion. Right after Legion, you hit two expansions that no one cares for the classic version of. No one wants Battle for Azeroth Classic, and no one wants Shadowlands Classic. So you're going to go to Dragonflight Classic. The problem is Dragonflight is already a new, relatively new expansion, so you can't really go there. So it ends. That's where the classic experience ends. The next path is the one that you suggest, where it links into whatever comes after Dragonflight, and that is a way for the game to basically both of these lines come together, and now you have a future in that sense. But the classic line still ends, right? There's still an end here. The third option that Blizzard could do is the one that I said, which is basically make a second game within the Warcraft IP. We know they had plans of doing that for mobile. There's even an outside chance that one of the reasons they canceled the mobile was because they have this idea already for the PC version, and so they didn't want to make 3 MMOs inside, World of Warcraft's IP, or inside the Warcraft IP. That is fucking... Take that with a grain of salt. I can't take that with the ocean's salt, actually. But then there's a fourth option. And this is perhaps the one that Blizzard should go for, because it might actually be the best one. You turn World of Warcraft Classic Wrath into old school RuneScape, effectively. You start adding things like housing. You take the professions and you just blow them the fuck up, where it can take months for people to fill out all those professions, and the professions can make the best items in the game, and you just keep adding items, and you do it exactly like old school RuneScape. So the way old school RuneScape works, and this is literally just people telling me, I've never actually played the fucking game.
It's by committee.
It's basically they put out a bunch of things, and people vote on whatever they think is the best. And when they have the vote on what they think people want, they make that, and then they put it into the game. So they basically come to the community and like, all right, guys, do you want 5 new dungeons, 1 new raid, or housing? And people vote. Based on those votes, they then make what the players want, and they basically make it a persistent, never-ending world. And for that version of the game, I would say you merge classic TBC and vanilla. So you merge Wrath, TBC, and vanilla into a singular game. So the entire 3 expansions becomes a persistent, never-ending, open-ended world. And that's a way for the classic experience to live forever.
Yeah, they could do stuff like add syncing, for instance, like the same syncing that we have in 14, where it's like, hey, now you can do this dungeon, but it syncs down, which makes it easier for your friends to, get friends into the game, and then you can go and play with them. You can sync for different quests. Like, just the syncing feature alone opens up so many possibilities that you currently don't have in a game.
And it works, right? Because
and in a way, you can even...
It follows on each other.
Yeah. And in a way, you can even just, like, imagine Blizzard goes like, okay, we're going to give you 6 dungeons to choose from like future expansions, right? Like, and people choose, okay, you get to choose like 3 of them or something, and we'll add these 3 into the game. And even though it doesn't make a lot of sense from a lore standpoint, it's just like, okay, now here's this Mists of Pandaria dungeon in Wrath of the Lich King with the Wrath of the Lich King talents, and, you know, things are balanced around your talents and your level, and it works. And, you know, then it's heroic and whatever, boom. They might even add like some of the raids, but again, you just kind of stay in that Wrath style. It'll just be a pain in the ass for them to balance it, I would imagine, because I mean, the raids and other expansions take into account borrowed power, which you don't have.
Yeah, of course. But that's the thing, right? Blizzard have an entire team working on the classic experience that is now going to have no job, because in 2 of the 4 possible scenarios, it ends.
Yeah, actually,
so that team has no job.
Your idea, actually, the 4th idea actually makes a lot of sense. I hadn't thought about it like that. I'll probably make a video about that. That sounds like a good discussion topic. But yeah, that's like what we think about the potential future of Wrath of the Lich King, the Heroic Plus system, all of that stuff. And one of the things that I've said in like 2 videos by now or something like that is, if you've never played Wrath of the Lich King, I personally do recommend it, right?
Yep.
You agree, right? Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
It is, and I will say this, and this is unironically 100%, it is the greatest expansion in the history of World of Warcraft, without a doubt. No kappa. I'm not exaggerating. Genuinely, you have never played anything like Classic Wrath. Never in your life. It's the most complete version of World of Warcraft from start to finish. It is perfection. And while, yes, it did add a lot of things that would eventually
Perfection is a big word. Perfection's a big word. Okay.
Perfection in the gaming industry. It's as close. The friction or the things that's wrong actually add to the charm of the expansion. There were very few things that broke the game. Things that you would look back at and go, fuck, that thing was horrible. None of that actually existed in Wrath. It was just a good, clean gaming experience.
And to wrap up this topic, we have potentially the most important question of all. So, for those of you who've never played Wrath of the Lich King, I would like to inform you that there are 2 starting zones. There is the Borean Tundra, and there is the Howling Fjord. One of those is the wrong choice. Which one is it?
If you're playing in Howling Fjord, you're trolling.
Oh, God, I can't believe you said that.
Borean Tundra is the natural starting point of the game. 100%. 100%. You want to know how? You want to know how I know you're wrong about this?
Listen, Accolonn. I want you to understand one thing, okay? I can tolerate you being an orc, but this is it. All right.
You want to know how I know you're wrong about this?
This is where the podcast ends, right here.
This is how I know you're wrong about this.
Okay.
In order to go to Borean Tundra, you started in Orgrimmar, the capital city of the Horde. That's where you have to start. It's natural. We're going to launch an expedition to fight the Lich King. We're going to start from our capital, the place where we're strongest. If you wanted to go Howling Fjord, you go to Undercity, some old school Alliance place that we just happen to fucking annex because there's undead there in the Alliance, or scaredy pants. They can't go near the undead. Ugh. Fuck that, bro. We start in Orgrimmar, we go to Borean Tundra. It's got some of the best quests. Now, don't get me wrong. I loved Howling Fjord. It was a beautiful zone. One of the most beautiful zones. Actually, I would say it's the second most beautiful zone in Wrath. And because I know people will say, what about Sholazar Basin? No, Sholazar Basin was fine, but it gets nowhere near Grizzly Hills, and it doesn't get anywhere near Howling Fjord.
Yep.
Those 2 zones are incredible. The storyline in Howling Fjord, absolutely phenomenal. But I leveled all classes in Wrath of the Lich King to max level, and only 2 of them did I play through Howling Fjord. All the others I went through Borean Tundra. The story is amazing.
I just can't.
And here's why it's amazing. Especially if you're Horde. If you're Alliance, who gives a fuck, right? No one cares. No one plays Alliance. But if you're a Horde, okay, there is a quest line in Borean Tundra that just showcases the might of the Horde. There is a...
That's why they put it in the Borean Tundra, because nobody cares.
There is a traitorous little turncoat, a scaredy-cat alliance fuckboy that we caught because he was trying to defect from the alliance. We threw him in with the pigs, and then you get tasked with taking him back to the alliance so that he can stand trial for being a fucking coward. Because that's who the Horde is. We do not tolerate cowards.
Good.
That's
what that guy deserves. Fuck that guy. I bet he wasn't a dwarf. I bet for damn sure he wasn't a dwarf.
No, he was a human foot soldier.
Of course he was. No dwarf betrays the alliance. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah, you guys were hiding in your fucking mountain. Like, who gives a
Yeah.
shit, bro?
But it's like, at the end of the day, listen, I leveled like, I don't know, 6 or 7 classes, and I've only saw the Borean Tundra once on my main, okay? That's all.
Dude, I love Borean Tundra, man. It was such a good fucking
I think it speaks volumes to the fact that we can have this discussion and there's like no clear winner. Like, you know,
No,
I love Howling Fjord.
Favorites.
Yeah, I love Howling Fjord. I think a majority of people go for Howling Fjord, though. From what I've heard online, a majority of people tend to go for Howling Fjord. Yeah. But yeah, it's good that there's people like Borean Tundra as well. And you also like, if you just think back, for instance, Storm Peaks is another amazing zone. You think back to raids. You think back to Ulduar, which is the best raid, in my opinion, that they've ever done. You believe that is ICC, which is also an excellent raid. I can't be like, nah, bro, ICC sucks. It's like, no, I can't. ICC is amazing.
Wait, in terms of mechanics and in terms of boss design, Ulduar
is the best. Yep.
In terms of story,
yes,
it has to be ICC.
Yes,
because you have fucking Arthas, the Lich King. That's the final fight.
Yes.
That was epic.
I'll give you that, but it's just like see, that's the difference between the two of us. We've talked about it before. It's like you're more lore oriented. I'm more gameplay oriented. That's why I'm like, dude, give me Ulduar. I'll be like, yeah. So it's like, yes.
I'm all for the story.
If you've never played it, yes, Wrath of the Lich King is probably amazing. The problem is you're probably going to be dealing with some queues, because I've heard like every single time that I see like a streamer boot up their Wrath of the Lich King stream, it's like boom in a queue. So be ready.
I mean, queues are going to happen, and queues are healthy. I know people hate them, but it shows that there's a lot of people interested in playing it, and I hope Blizzard takes fucking notes. Because Classic, being as successful as it is, proves that World of Warcraft isn't dead.
Yes.
For anyone that says, oh my God, it's dead, it's just because people no longer care about MMOs, bullshit.
Yeah.
Bullshit. If people no longer gave a fuck about MMOs, Wrath wouldn't be as successful as it is. It wouldn't have queues for people to try and logging in. Because it happened in TBC as well. There were queues for people trying to log in there as well. It shows you that what is dead is what Blizzard thinks MMOs should look like.
Yeah.
Blizzard is wrong about how they're designing their MMOs. They have to go back to the basics. And I think, and that leads us into our next topic of conversation, because we now have a date for the launch of probably the most important expansion in the history of World of Warcraft's career.
I don't know if it's the most important expansion in their career. I will say it's like an extremely important expansion, because people always talk about the TikTok rhythm of expansions. Like you get a tick. Which one's the good one? Is it the tick or is it the talk? I don't know. I think the tick is supposed to be the good one.
The tick is the good one and talk is the bad one. Yeah.
So it's like you get a tick, and that's like a really good expansion. Like people talk about Legion, and then you get a talk, which is a really bad expansion, like BFA. And we've had 2 talks in a row, which is Shadow. I mean, you had 2 talks in a row, and that's not. It goes tick tock tick. When you go tick tock tock, it doesn't make sense anymore. So they got to get another tick.
I want to say the problem, and this is something very few people actually speak about. It's not actually true for World of Warcraft, the TikTok theory. Not if you look at it holistically. So think about this: vanilla, absolutely fantastic.
Yes.
TBC, absolutely fucking fantastic. So that's 2 ticks.
Talk.
Wrath,
tick, 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 yes.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic.
Tick, tick, tick. Hey!
Cataclysm comes out and people perceive it as a talk. But it's only a talk because if you compare it to the heights of Wrath, it's not as good. If you compare it by itself, it's a fucking solid expansion. It is very good. The classes play really good. The zones are really good. The raids are phenomenal. The dungeons are phenomenal. The game is a solid game, but when you compare it to Wrath, not as great. And then it has the unhappy coincidence, much like Heavensward, of falling between Wrath and Mist of Pandaria. where Mists of Pandaria was another perceived by the community as a take. But Cataclysm isn't actually a talk. It's not actually a bad expansion. It's actually a very good expansion. It just happens to fall between two brilliant expansions, right? And then you have, right after that, you have World of Draenor, where we can argue was the first actual talk. Right? That was the first actual, like, really bad expansion for World of Warcraft. Then you go into Legion, another tick, and then you go talk.
Yep.
Okay. And now we don't know if the next one is going to be a tick or a talk. We have no idea.
We have no idea.
The only verifiable bad expansions in the history of World of Warcraft have been World of Draenor, Battle for Azeroth, and Shadowlands. And all three of these expansions have fundamental errors in common.
I didn't care for Cataclysm either. And here's the thing. I didn't care for Cataclysm, and I didn't play Mist, so I can't talk about Mists. So it's like, at the time, I was like, bro, I don't want to play no expansion with pandas. Like, what the hell is this? Like, what's going on? I'm not interested in this.
I can only tell you, so I played 6 months in the beginning, 6 months at the end, and then obviously I've leveled through Mists of Pandaria a million fucking times. And I can tell you, the leveling experience of Mists of Pandaria, one of the greatest ever. It is such a good leveling experience, because it's around about this time that Blizzard really started diving into a lot of story being jam-packed into the world and the questing experience. The world is fantastic. It's such a beautiful world. From everyone I've spoken to, the dungeons are some of the best the game has ever produced. The raids are some of the best the game has ever produced. So for someone that really cares about this kind of stuff, it is a phenomenal experience. Of course, nowadays you're not getting the fullness of that experience because a lot of the scenarios and stuff is no longer there. So you can't really experience it in the way that you're supposed to. But, you know, nevertheless, it was still a fantastic expansion for a lot of people. Cataclysm for me was an amazing... I loved Cataclysm. I fucking loved it. As a raider, it's the best raids the game has ever had. Hands down. Every single one of those raids were phenomenal. So I'm a huge fan of Cataclysm in that regard. I would say no, purely because you had things like Firelands, right, in Cataclysm, which took what raid design could be just to such a new level. Because you have this giant raid, right, that is one room. And from everywhere in the room, you can see everything else happening. Like, you can see the other bosses there. You can see what's going on. It's a phenomenal fucking raid. The design was just so fucking crisp and clear. Ulduar is still an amazing raid. Don't get me wrong.
It's the best one.
I think Cataclysm had some of the most fun raids for me. Let me put it that way. We had a lot of fun in Cataclysm. So I would say arguably the only three that is clear talks is World of Draenor, and all of them had the same issue. World of Draenor was completely undeveloped. They left out so much that was planned and promised.
Yeah.
And this is not, by the way, this is not conspiracy theories. Go back to the BlizzCon that happened, speaking about what's coming in World of Draenor, and then look at what actually came. They cut so much in World of Draenor. And also, funnily enough, World of Draenor was the one where Ian Ezekostas took over from Tom Chilton. Ian Ezekostas, as a developer, as the senior developer for World of Warcraft, has one W behind his name, and that's Legion.
Legion, yeah. 3
of the 4 expansions that Ian Ezekostas has been the leader of have failed. 3 out of 4. The dude has a 25% success rate in terms of expansions. And the reason for it is because he doesn't seem to grasp the less is more approach.
Bro,
he constantly tries to overcomplicate his games.
For some strange reason, when you said he had a 25% success chance, I was like, that's not a very good thing if you're talking about the sack, man. That's 25%. No. I don't think the ladies would be happy with a 25% success rate.
Dude, the guy literally, Ian Ezekostas has the same success rate as marriage. 3 out of 4 marriages fail in the world. Ian Ezekostas in marriage has the same fucking success rate, bro. That is the shit that you have to think about here.
Bro, stop.
So yeah, I would argue, and it's not. I don't think it's his fault. Just to be clear, I don't think it's his fault.
I think my Final Fantasy 14 Paladin has more crit chance than he has a cost of success. Bro.
I want to say this because I think it's important to say. Actually, it is his fault, but that's not.
It's your fault, Ian.
It's more a case of it's not on purpose. It's not like Ian is trying to fail. It's that Ian tries to do too much. Ian tries
He's too ambitious.
He believes that if he's way too ambitious. He tries to do these really ambitious things, and then they fail because it's too ambitious. Everyone knows that the trick to success is to try and simplify things as much as possible. Whenever you're like, we'll go to a real world example here. Let's say you try and schedule, because having a schedule is a really good thing. But let's say you're new to scheduling and you try to work out a schedule for yourself, right? Here's the problem. Most people will start by scheduling way too ambitiously. So I'm going to do this and then this and then this. I'm going to do 500 things in a day, and I'm having all of these things scheduled out, right? I have my planner and all of these things are on there. Then you fail on most of them because there's way too many things on there. And then the next day you fail, and before you know it, you've stopped scheduling because I can't keep up with this. The best way to do it is to be simple. So when I work out my schedule, I go, right, I want one video a week, not 3, not 4, just one. One good video a week. I'm going to do an hour a day for scripting. I'm going to do an hour a day for preparing the script. I'm going to do 2 hours a day for whatever, right? So you go less ambitious, simplistic, easy to follow. And from there, you can start adding on. The problem with Ian is he wanted to go right from the get-go, balls to the wall, just blaring out content. And what ended up happening is the only expansion that worked was Legion, because they gave up halfway through Warlords of Draenor of making that work and spent all that time just developing Legion. And then
which in a way,
when the other expansions came, there wasn't enough time to make it work.
Which in a way, it's kind of what happened with Shadowlands. They gave up halfway into Shadowlands, started working on Dragonflight. So that could be a good sign. But I still think it's very bad for the game as a whole to have that perception, as you're just like, yeah, sometimes we just give up halfway, you know, sometimes you get good value and sometimes you don't. Yep. It's like playing the slots. It's like playing the slots. Sometimes you get 3 7s and sometimes you get the clown. You get nothing.
Yeah. I've said this before, and this is something that you kind of have to look towards Final Fantasy for. One of the reasons for the success of Final Fantasy is the failure of Final Fantasy 1.0.
Yeah.
And before, a lot of people might be like, what are you talking about, bro? Going through the process of fixing 1.0, looking at all of the problems the players had, trying to come up with solutions, tools you for the future. Because now in the future, you come up with an idea and you're like, wait a second, this is very similar to what we had in 1.0. And in 1.0, it failed miserably. We can't do this again.
Yeah.
We have to find a better way of doing it. Because you learn by making mistakes, and this is what most people fucking forget about that saying, because it's not actually you learn through making mistakes. It's you learn through making mistakes by fixing it. Because it's the fix that teaches you how to not do it again. The problem with World of Warcraft and Blizzard specifically is that they just give up. They just give up. And this has happened now multiple times.
Yeah.
They just give up and they just start over. We'll do it the next time around.
They can't keep getting away with it.
You don't learn anything then. Yeah, well, they will keep getting away with it because there's people that's too fucking stupid to punish them for it. And also, I should probably not say too stupid to punish them for it because that's not quite fair. You don't want people to punish them too harshly because then the game dies and they don't get to fix it anyways, right? So at the end of the day, you're sort of caught between this. Someone still needs to keep playing so that they have an opportunity to fix it, right? Not everyone can be like me and just be like, fuck it, I'm not paying you shit.
But basically, all of this to say that this expansion needs to be a good expansion. It needs to be a solid expansion. They need to pull something out that people actually enjoy and something that can hopefully restore a bit of the name of the game. Like, I'm a harsh critic of World of Warcraft. You're a harsh critic of World of Warcraft. We talk about this at length, and people get upset when we do that because they're like, you guys don't even play the game. You guys don't like the game. Stop talking about it. If we didn't like the game, we wouldn't talk about it. we wouldn't talk about it. It's like, like for instance, look at Lost Ark. I don't talk about it anymore. Like I played a little bit of it and like I don't talk about it anymore.
Yeah.
I don't care. I don't care if Lost Ark becomes super successful. I don't care if it becomes super miserable. It means absolutely nothing to me. So I don't talk about it. World of Warcraft, I'm still invested. I'm interested. I want it to do well. And I think it is important for the MMO space that World of Warcraft does well because it breeds competition. So
and it's the fucking OG. It's
the
OG of
OG.
the modern day MMO era. We can't have it die. It needs to survive.
Yeah.
Mainly because I want to play it.
We've been talking about this. We still haven't said what the release date is, but the release date was announced yesterday. Well, I was going to say yesterday. It'll probably have been 2 days ago by the time I release this podcast because I have so many things going on right now. Yeah. But the release date is 28th of November. Now, there was a rumor a while ago that I believe actually said 26th, but I'm not 100% sure. Like some kind of a leak or something where they said, game comes out on the 26th. It was either the 26th, but basically it was around the time that they're actually releasing. And that rumor also put the pre-patch about a month earlier, which makes sense. Even the Wrath of Lich King pre-patch this time around goes 1 month earlier. So somewhere from the 25th onwards, you can expect at that point, you'll probably get the pre-patch for Dragonflight. Now the question. So I
have to reinstall World of Warcraft. Christ.
Yes.
All right.
Now the first question that instantly comes to mind is, are they ready for it? Because I've seen a lot of people comment, like people that played the beta and stuff like that, comment and say like, feels like they could use another month, and that is not what you want to hear.
Yeah. I mean, they have another month, right? It's not like they still have 2 months to make the expansion perfect. No, I think they're ready. I think they're as ready as they're ever going to be. People have to accept that there's going to be bugs. There has never been a launch of a single game in the modern day video gaming era that didn't launch with a lot of bugs. Bugs is to be expected. I'm fine with bugs. Because usually major bugs start presenting themselves once you throw millions of people at the problem. So the second you throw millions and millions of players at the problem, the bugs start to become incredibly obvious. So I would expect that there's going to be bugs. It seems like most of the systems is already in place and working, at least the ones that they've shown off, because they've been incredibly secretive actually this time around with a lot of what they do, giving people very little time to actually taste things. So I do kind of like the new mantra. For the first time ever, I can say I'm going to go into Dragonflight with very little actually spoiled for myself. Part of it is because I just don't cover it, the beta that much. Yeah. If it's not a massive spoiler, I don't cover it. And when I say massive spoiler, it doesn't have to be a massive spoiler. It just needs to be something that I'm personally interested in. So I'm going into much of Dragonflight completely unspoiled. I'm going to finally be able to play the game as if it's the first time I've played it. So I'm really looking forward to that. I think the game is going to be fine. I think it's going to take a lot of time for people to get used to the new World of Warcraft, the one where much of the fun is made by you and not by the game. I think we can get ready for a lot of complaints there, because people are going to log in, they're going to go, what the fuck am I supposed to do now? I've leveled and there's no Torghast, there's no system.
Here's the best part. If it ends up being that the expansion is solid, and this is a big if, it's a big if, because like, again, I'm not even recommending people, oh yeah, you should try it out 100%. Like, I will only report on that after I get my hands onto the game and a significant amount of playtime. I mean, I will probably only really express an opinion in terms of like, should you get into it or not, by the time I get the max level. Like, people are going to be asking me, so Rurikhan, is it worth, because it always happens when you're playing a game on your stream or something like, people are always like, so is it worth it? Is it worth it now? Should I come back? And I'm going to be like, I'm not telling you a damn thing. I'll tell you, am I having fun? Am I not having fun? That's all I'll say. I'm not recommending people to come back until I hit endgame and I get to see it. But I'll tell you what, if I see the endgame, then I was like, okay, so this is good because it doesn't force me to do anything. and I start seeing people go like, I need my dailies. I need something. I got nothing to do. I'm going to make videos slamming everybody that says that. It's like, shut the fuck up, go level an alt and shut the fuck up. Like, that's it.
Yeah.
It's like, this is what we wanted. We wanted to be able to play multiple characters, not have to worry too much about like upkeep and shit like that. So if people start complaining about like, oh, I want to gain 1% more power by repeating the same activity 100 times, I'll be like, I'll slap you. I will slap you. I will slap this idea out of you, dude. Shut up.
Just like a quick backhand. Bitch, please. Shut the fuck up.
They start talking, but shut up. Nothing.
Bitch, I'm gonna slap you. It's a I mean, I'm very excited for it because I don't know if I'm going to be playing it on stream yet. Mainly because of how I do my streams. Games like that don't really work on my streams anymore. But I might stream it. If I don't stream it, I'll just play it offline. And yeah, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to want to hit max level. I'm going to want to see the story. I'm going to want to see how much of the game is mandatory. Because that really is my biggest issue with the last few expansions, is that so much of the game was mandatory. And I don't like mandatory content because I do play an awful lot of games. Like, if you've never been to one of my streams, you won't know this, but talk to some of my fucking viewers. They'll tell you. They get annoyed with me because I'll play a game for 2 days and then I'm done.
Yeah, we talked
and I start
about
playing
this.
Another game, right?
You
I don't want a
food,
game that fucking ties me in.
You eat your food like a typewriter, and then you play your games like a dog with freaking ADHD.
Yeah.
The kind of dog like spreads their food all over the place.
I get bored. That's the problem. I started playing Stellaris 2 days ago. I'm bored of it now. And it's a great game. It's fun. I just don't want to log in anymore. So I bought Terra Invicta, and now I'm going to play Terra Invictus because that seems like a good game.
You still haven't played Monster Hunter. I'm sad.
No, I don't even own Monster Hunter.
Very sad.
Oh, I wanted to ask you, did you see we spoke about this a while ago, but I started seeing this popping out on Twitter. EA, their God something fucking game that's basically like a copy of, it's like a Monster Hunter game.
The funny thing is it's called Wild Hearts, which almost sounds like a title for a visual novel.
Yeah.
But yes, I'm interested in that game. I'm going to play it, and it seems to be very much consumer friendly from what I've seen so far, which is very weird, but we'll see.
I mean, EA is on thin ice. There's a reason why it's so consumer friendly. EA have lost the license to Disney Star Wars. They've lost the license to FIFA, right? They might at some point lose the license to Madden or NFL. So EA is on thin ice, dude. They are trying everything. I've seen so many videos for Dragon Age because I'm a huge Dragon Age fanboy. Yeah. So many videos now and so many articles for Dragon Age, and it seems like the same thing. It seems like BioWare is going balls deep on the old school Dragon Age fucking experience, wanting to bring back that player first mentality, and it's good to see.
It seems like a lot of companies are doing that in a way. Dragonflight as well, with them bringing back talent trees and stuff like that. And, who knows if that is the case.
The AAA industry is always going to go where the money goes, right? And the thing is, there's always a lagging effect. So if you are incredibly greedy, and I think this is what a lot of people miss, because greed works in the short term. It does not work in the long term. Because in every facet of society, greed will get you into different types of problems. So say, for example, you're greedy and this leads to you breaking the law and stealing. Eventually, you're going to get caught and then you're going to go to jail. So all of your greed paid off for nothing. We have a great example in South Africa of a guy, Gayton McKenzie, right? He was a bank robber in his early 20s, got caught, went to jail, got released on good behavior, reformed the prison fucking system after he got in there. And now he's the mayor of a town in South Africa, and apparently he's a pretty decent mayor. I don't know, but apparently he's a pretty decent mayor. So this is the thing, right? Greed will catch up with you. There's nothing you do. In gaming, that greed leads to them going with very unfriendly practices towards their gamers, basically just making the game so full of monetization that it's no longer a game, but rather closer to a casino. And it takes a while for players to catch on and be like, I'm not actually having fun here. But once players catch on, games start dying fast. No one could have predicted this. I said 5 years ago, and you guys can check this, I think it's still on my main channel. 5 years ago, I made a video where it's actually, no, not 5 years, 3.5 years ago, I made a video where I said that Battlefield and Call of Duty is dying, and they're gonna die because there's no innovation. It's basically the same game every year getting released, just with a new title. Yeah. And everyone said, dude, that's not possible. Just look at Call of Duty. It just broke the all-time sales record for video games with 550 million copies, or $550 million, made of the game. And I was like, well, I might be wrong.
That's the perfect time to fall. When you're at your highest, it's the perfect time that you can go like, wee!
But you see, that's exactly the point. It doesn't, that fall isn't gradual. It's not something that you're going to see, oh, this one's going to be less, this one's going to be less. It's like with everything. You saw that with Battlefield, you saw that with Call of Duty, you saw that with FIFA, you're now seeing it with NFL. The height is here, and then the next game they release is like, boom, off a fucking cliff as people go, because they're getting fed up with all these releases all the way to the top. By the time it reaches the top, most players are like, okay, wait, this is now 5 fucking titles in a row where I get the exact same game. Some of them have the exact same bugs in it from the previous fucking one, right?
Yeah.
So they really didn't even make a new game. They just sort of made the graphics look a little bit better. Then they go for the next one. No, I think we'll skip it.
Yeah, but I think you bring up an interesting point with that story, which is apparently this person reformed himself and he was able to now actually contribute to society. He's a mayor of a city or whatever, and it's like you said, apparently a really decent dude. So
they say
could that be the case for some of the publishers? Who knows? I mean, we'll see.
Yeah, I think
I'm definitely going to check out Wild Hearts, and it'll be an interesting thing to check out. One of the things I will say about that reveal before we move on is that I really appreciated the way that they did it, because nowadays there still is a tendency from a lot of publishers to go like, oh yeah, here's a video game. We'll talk more in like 5 years or some bullshit. You could like just look at Bethesda for this. Oh, by the way, we're developing Elder Scrolls 6. When did you say this? Like 2018, 2007? I don't even remember. It was
like
fucking long.
Actually, I just want to say
we're working on Starfield. It's like, okay, is that going to come out?
Starfield is like a decade ago, right?
Yeah.
Elder Scrolls 6, just to fucking be clear, in 2018, I think, or 2019, I think it was 2018.
We're working
Todd
on
Howard,
it.
The god that everyone claims he
God
is,
Howard
steps out on stage and he goes, something you've all been waiting for, and he points to the screen, and the screen is this camera going over an open field, and then a city in the distance.
There's nothing.
And then pops up the letters Elder Scrolls 6. Bam, that's it. That's the end of it.
A big nothing burger. Like, here's a big nothing burger for a video game that you all knew we were going to do. Here's a big no news for. Whereas, like, Wild Hearts, for those of you that are not aware, they're like, okay, here's this game. We're revealing it right now. And by the way, it's releasing in February. And I was like, whoa. See, that's what I'm talking about.
That's
you
nice.
need to announce a game and release it within 6 months. Release it within 6 months. Like, none of this friggin'. Oh man, it will release at some point, you know, when we get around.
Yeah, but I mean, they do that. Most companies do that to ride the share price, because they know releasing like news of a game that's launching will prop up the share price. The issue is when those games take too long, you can only do it once.
Yeah.
So it's almost always better for these companies to do it closer to the launch and be honest about it, right? Be consumer friendly. Hopefully we're seeing a change in the AAA gaming industry. I would be very happy if they could reform themselves.
It'd be so
because
good.
there are very good games in the AAA industry. Games that I don't want to see die. Mass Effect, Dragon Age, Witcher, Cyberpunk. All of these games are games that I want to see exist. I don't want to include the games from software or anything like that, because they're actually AAA studios that aren't fucked up. So they just keep doing what the fuck they're doing, right?
But,
they don't have this problem.
getting back to Dragonflight. So we have the release date. We have the potential pre-patch. We now also know that the first season starts on the 12th of December, which they've also announced. And this season is going to have Mythic rating week 1. Mythic Plus and Mythic rating week 1.
I will say the thing that I'm a little annoyed with is the fact that they're doing the raid launch on the 12th of December. For a couple of reasons. Firstly, this is around the festive season. This is when people hang out with families. This is when a lot of people get, at least in South Africa, or I should probably say, at least in the Southern Hemisphere. This is where a lot of us, our holidays start on the 15th of December, where people are home, they're with their families, and now you're releasing this game that's going to take people away from that. It's not necessarily the worst thing in the world, but I'm thinking about the developers here as well.
Yeah.
The developers are going to have to spend their Christmas season fixing bugs and
not
shit.
To mention, I always think that World of Warcraft raids, they release too early.
Like, I actually agree with that.
Am I wrong? Like, I feel like they release let the game breathe a little bit. I mean, like 2 weeks. You get 2 weeks, and I understand that for a lot of people, you guys are gonna say like, oh, I can level up to max. Like for instance, look at Shadowlands, right? Asmongold leveled up in 5 hours. 5 hours, boom, I'm done. Skipping all the cutscenes, not paying attention to the story, not giving a fuck. Boom, boom, boom. Let's go. And it's like, I just think that if you develop your game around degenerates, and by the way, I say degenerates not as a pejorative term, because like when it comes to gaming, I'm a fucking degenerate too. Like, don't get that.
Same.
Don't get it wrong. We're all degenerates here. I'm saying like you can't develop your game exclusively around degeneracy, because here's the thing: you're never going to catch up to it. Like, if I want to, you will never develop content at a speed at which I can consume it. I can always consume the content faster. I don't care how fast you create content. I can consume it faster if I want to. I guarantee you. If I put my mind to it, I'll be like, dude, I can consume this whole thing like that. Like, no problem. Boom, boom, boom. Just like go straight up, full degen mode, play 24/7. Boom, boom. You can't compete with that. It's impossible. True. So I'm thinking like, why even bother trying? Like, there's going to be some people that are going to level up to max day one, and they're going to do all of the content available in the game day one, and they're going to get to the end, they're going to go like, oh, this is it? There's no more content. And it's like, okay, this is fine. This is not a problem. Yeah. So long as there's a reasonable amount of content, so long as, like, I don't know, let's say for the average player, it takes them like 30 hours to get through the leveling experience. Maybe a little bit less, because, you know, in expansions, maybe, let's say 20 hours, right? Yeah. I think this is fine. So long as there's still like repeatable activities that you can do, there's still the alts that you can do. You can take the game at a leisurely pace. You don't have to be stressed out about, oh my God, it's Christmas. This is going to be a problem. I also understand there's an argument to be made the other way, which is some people don't give a fuck about family. They just want to play video games. And those people, Christmas is going to be the best time for them to play video games.
Yeah, so I feel like
I can see the argument on both sides.
But you see, I feel like
the thing to me isn't even about Christmas. It's about 2 weeks after the game comes out.
Yeah.
It's like, let the game breathe a little, let people explore it a little. Like, maybe you can, I don't know if this has ever been a thing. I don't know if this would be viable, but like maybe bring in Mythic a little bit earlier or something. And then you bring in the big raid. And then, you know, like, I feel like at the start of next year would be a much better place for them to release a raid than at the 12th. But I already know that the people that actually hardcore raid and whatnot are going to come up with all kinds of arguments against it. And
well, again,
go for it.
Sorry to interrupt you there. I just wanted to, on that point, say the hardcore raiders have in the past complained about the raid falling over Christmas. Because for a lot of these hardcore raiders, they take time out of their lives to fucking raid. Now they have to take time away from family. A lot of these guys are married. They have girlfriends. They have mothers, fathers that they want to spend time with, but they can't because the raid is live and they want to do the world first race. Now, again, I want to be clear. Blizzard should not design their game around degeneracy, and going for world first is a degenerate way to play the game.
It is, very much so.
But it's not.
By the way, it's a valid way to play the game.
Yeah, you
still
can play
a degenerate way to play the game.
Yeah, of course. Look, I have all the love in the world for degeneracy. That's why my supporters are called the Degenation, because they are degenerate little fucks. And I love that. But at the same time, I don't like the fact that, as you said, the game should have time to breathe, especially with Dragonflight. Because I'm going to level my Warlock, right? Get my Warlock to max level. And then I'm probably going to go for a Drakthir. Because even though I don't care for Drakthir, I kind of want all the characters at max level. Then after my Drakthir, I'm most likely going to switch immediately to play my Paladin, get that one up to max level, then my Warrior, and then my Druid. And that usually is the first characters that I level up. It all depends on how good the game is. I didn't do that for Shadowlands because I got bored before I even got there. But if the game is good, that's always how I play the game. So I'm not going to, even if I did raid, I'm not going to set foot in the raid for the first month because I'm going to be playing the fucking game. Because I want to level these characters, I want to see the world, I'm going to do dailies, I'm going to have fun. And that, I think, is important. It's important to dissuade that degenerate play style of, oh my god, I have to level as quickly as possible. And the only reason people have to level that quickly is because the raid is launching in 2 weeks. Whereas if you announce from the beginning, okay, the game is launching on the 12th of December, the raid is launching on the 12th of January, people know that they have a month. And maybe they're not going to listen the first expansion. So maybe this expansion, they still fucking hardcore level to max. But by next expansion or the expansion after that, people have sort of gotten used to the fact that, man, if I level too fast, I'm going to be bored. So how about I do take... Because, guys, here's how I leveled in Shadowlands. I sat down, had a bunch of fucking snacks, biltong and fucking meat snacks and shit. And I leveled from start to finish in one sitting. Took me 13 hours to do it.
Oh, that sounds painful.
I mean, my ass was fucked by the end of that, right? And not in a good way, just very sore from sitting the whole time. Yeah. But I did it because that's the way you play World of Warcraft. I'm not going to do it this time around. This time around, I'm going to play it at my own fucking leisure.
Yeah,
I'll play as long as I want, and then I'm done.
I didn't do that at all. Like, I just took my time with it. It's whatever, you know. I just leveled, and then I was like, okay, now I'm going to level another character, and I'm going to do some dungeons. I'm going to get, like, let people grind a little bit, enjoy the game, and then bring this stuff. Because, like, 2 weeks, I think for the average player, is kind of like a lot of pressure. Now, I understand that a lot of people take time off. Not everybody's going to be able to take time off. Let's hope that this time they don't delay it, because last time people took time off, and then Blizzard's we are altering the deal. Pray we don't alter it any further.
Dude, that's going to be so bad if Blizzard announces
Dude,
that
if they do that again, oh, shit. Like, listen,
you can already know people have taken time off.
Yeah. It's like, listen, I'm all for whatchamacallit, delaying the game if you feel like you need it. But for people that take time off, that is going to be a bitter pill to swallow. I'll tell you that right now.
Oh, yes. Absolutely.
But, you know, we'll see how that pans out. Now, another interesting topic that came around this was the fact that for the first raid, Vault of the Incarnates, there's only going to be group loot. Now, I'm going to be reading off of a blue post that I have here to add the full context. This is a post from Scarizard, and here's what he says. Hey, folks, going to respond and add some clarity that might alleviate some concerns, or at the very least, better communicate how things will be. As the title says, these would be for Dragonflight Season 1, which means group loot being always on is not just for beta, because they're adding this in beta, and people were wondering, because in the first communication, there was some questions. People were like, okay, so is this just for beta? Is it going to be in the live game? It's going to be in the live game. That said, we've improved group loot a lot from when it was last shown in 2016, and we're continuing to work to remove other edge cases. For example, in the past, Need Greed only knew if something was equipable or the right armor type, not if it was meant for your spec or not. This has now changed, so it looks like Need and Greed is going to take your spec into account. First off, you can never need on anything your class cannot wear. So no warrior sniping cloth robes with a need roll and giving it away or trolling. We also have main spec and off spec functionality built in, which changes based on the current loot spec you have set. So basically, it seems like you'll be able to set, okay, here's my main spec, here's my off spec. So probably the game will roll first on your main spec. And then if nobody has like a main spec roll, it rolls off the off specs, which is cool. Main spec takes priority, then off spec, then greed. So while a ret paladin can't off spec loot a shield away from a main spec roll from the tank, anyone rolling greed could never win over them. You understand?
Pretty nice. Yeah, so it's basically protecting players against
Ninja looting.
the tank signing up as a tank, but then changing his main spec. So because you can do 2 specs for anyone that doesn't know, you can change your spec to what kind of loot you want from personal loot. Now, what Blizzard is doing this time around, because this is a problem that a lot of DPS run into, especially plate wearers, where the tank goes in because it's easy to get groups as tank, but then changes all of their shit to be raid paladin. So now they get all the raid gear because they actually want to be raid, but they don't want to wait in the queue, where the other raid waited in the fucking queue, but now can't get anything because the tank is getting everything. Where now it seems like, if I'm listening correctly to this post, it seems like the system actually knows that you're in there as a tank. And while you're in there as a tank, and yes, you want raid gear, the raid guy is going to get priority over you for the two-handed axe, right?
Yeah.
But if the raid guy doesn't want the axe, then you can get the item over anyone else that rolls greed.
And listen, this keeps going. This also means that if you swap specs for a specific fight, like going holy, you can still main spec roll for your desired items if they come from that boss without having to worry yourself about hurting yourself by being flexible to the group. Looks like you still have to... So this last part appears to indicate that like you can flex and still get prot gear. That's what this seems to indicate.
So that then refutes the earlier argument that I made.
Sorry.
People are still going to get fucked. You see, this is the problem that I have with group loot being forced on everything.
But the thing is, it's like you basically set up for your loot, I'm imagining a main spec and an off spec.
Yeah.
And then, you get loot accordingly, but you can only get it for one roll. So, I don't know. Also, it says here, players won't be able to win multiples of the same item. Say 2 sets of shoulders drop, while you can roll need on both of them. Winning one will remove your roll from the other. Additionally, players can't need on a piece of loot if they're wearing the exact piece at the exact item level. Though in the event where this occurs, but the drop piece has a tertiary stat or socket, that roll would be possible, as those are upgrades. Lastly, even after winning the roll, items remain fully tradable without restrictions to any player that was eligible as looter, as in if you weren't locked to that boss previously. Inversely, inversely, this means that players who have already killed boss 1 on normal for the week can't join that boss and have loot traded to them. So it's kind of like the same way. You can't just like keep farming and trading loot for people, whatever. Same way this has been. Similarly, the need/greed pain won't appear for that player. As many in this thread have speculated, all players in personal loot were constantly rolling behind the scenes, whether you wanted to or not. It's not as simple as with group loot you're rolling against everyone, but in personal loot you're rolling against fewer. Changing the group loot raids makes the process of loot acquisition and distribution more transparent, gives players more freedom to trade loot around and allocate it socially if they choose to do so. I think it's good. Basically, you can do master loot as group loot if you want.
So I will say I don't like the fact that it's forced onto everyone, because there are people that just like personal loot for the fact that they feel like they're cheated less, even though knowing the system. They just said that's like
you're rolling against people anyway, even with personal loot, so not that much has changed. It's just that it's not as public, basically.
Yeah, I think what people should look at this as, and I'm going to use two different games here. If you've ever played Divinity Original Sin or Baldur's Gate 2, or Baldur's Gate 1 even for that matter, you would understand. In Baldur's Gate 2, it works exactly the same as Divinity Original Sin 2. Baldur's Gate 2, your character is rolling with every shot. The only difference is, unlike in Divinity Original 2, where you get your turn and then you decide what you want to shoot, and then it makes the roll to determine if you're going to hit, if you're going to miss, if it's going to be crit, if it's not. In Baldur's Gate 2, those rolls happen behind the scenes. So if you open the combat log, you will see you rolled this much, and that means it's a hit. Then you rolled this much, it means that's how much damage you did. So you can see the rolls, it's just happening automatically in the background. So you have pause start gameplay, but you don't have turn-based gameplay. So this is basically the same thing. The only difference now is that, unlike in personal loot, where everyone that killed the boss would roll to see who gets the highest rolls. Those people would get the gear, and the gear could be anything the boss drops. You now have a much smaller group of people that you are going to roll against, because if there's a plate shoulder that drops from the boss, only the people that need that plate shoulder, first and foremost, will roll on it, and only the people that can equip it can roll on it. So at the end of the day, you're only rolling against the plate users, whereas in the past, you would roll against everyone, plate users, cloth users, and leather users, and mail users, and then the highest of those would determine what shoulders dropped. So if the boss had mail shoulders, cloth soldiers, and plate soldiers, it could drop mail, not plate, because mail users rolled higher, so they get the item, and the item is mail shoulders, right? So it is, I think, a better system overall. It also simplifies the loot council idea a lot more than what it used to in the past, especially for guilds that run mythic, hardcore, like raid guilds, because now you have group loot, which means you can tell ahead of time. You can say, right, don't roll, this guy gets it, need roll, take your piece. Don't roll, this guy gets it, need, so it makes it a hell of a lot easier for the group to run, faster probably as well. So no, I don't think I mind this. I like the fact that it's a bit smarter as a system, and it fixes the one issue that personal loot had, and that is there was no way of determining who gets what piece of loot.
They also
or bigger guilds.
It can still happen that you get a bow and there's no hunter, though. It can happen with
obviously.
the system, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
So real quick, one of the last things that I wanted to talk about, so we wrap up World of Warcraft because we have so many topics to go through still, is why do you think, and this is something that I've been thinking about a lot, why do you think that Wrath of the Lich King and Dragonflight launched as closely as they did to one another?
Yeah.
These are two expansions that, in my opinion, have launched incredibly close. And I don't think that makes a whole lot of sense from a business perspective, because eventually they do cannibalize each other a little bit. Even if it's not entirely, it is a little bit. A lot of players do want to play both things. Why do you think this happened?
Well,
I don't have the answer, by the way. This is just like discussion.
From a business perspective, it actually makes a lot of sense, because this is the last sort of quarter of the year, right? By next year, they will have their earnings call, and the earnings call is either going to show this quarter as a massive loss or a massive gain, depending on what they have. This way, they release Wrath, I believe, about a month before the launch.
About a month before the pre-patch of Dragonflight.
Yes, about a month before the pre-patch of Dragonflight. So you're about 2 months into Wrath by the time Dragonflight launches. Now, if I remember Wrath correctly, about 2 months in, you're kind of progressing through Naxxramas, but because you didn't have Heroic at that point, you just had the normal Naxxramas. Most people are already done with Naxxramas, so a lot of the hype has died down as you're waiting for Ulduar to go live, which means you're catching it as the hype for Wrath is starting to die out because they're waiting for the new raid. Boom comes Dragonflight, and it picks up again, pushes it back up, and especially now with Dragonflight being very closely related in many ways to Wrath of the Lich King, because it's so close to Ice Crown, but also Northrend, and also there's so much of the story in Dragonblight that is the same in that carries over into Dragonflight. They're probably hoping that they get a lot of these classic Andes that probably don't play retail to try it out. So it is sort of building hype upon hype. So I think as far as a release schedule works, it's actually perfect from a business perspective.
I think it's like, I was just looking at the launch roadmap because I was curious. The current launch roadmap indicates that October 6th is when Naxxramas, Eye of Eternity, and Obsidian Sanctum go live in Wrath Classic. So in a way, that gives you about 20 days. Then you can go play the pre-patch, depending on how efficient you are at clearing this content naturally. Then you can go play the pre-patch, and then the thing is, what are they going to do afterwards? They could just keep Naxxramas, Eye of Eternity, Obsidian Sanctum for like a couple of months.
Yeah.
And then they bring out Ulduar, probably going to be the case. I think that this is my thought process, they're probably trying to juggle the lulls of each game to keep players engaged in both. It's like, hey, why don't you, because it's the same subscription, so hey, why don't you go play some Wrath content, and then why don't you come back and play some Dragonflight content? I actually hadn't thought about this right until I looked at this roadmap with October 6th for Naxxramas. Kind of feels like very early, because the launch was 26th, so that's like 2 weeks. It's barely
about
2
2
weeks. It's less than 2 weeks. It's like 10 days, 11 days, give or take. No, wait.
Yeah, but I mean, it makes sense because in Wrath, you basically leveled up, and then you did dungeons, normal, heroic, and then you did the raid. The raid was really where you got your first gear.
Yeah.
It was pretty. It's very easy to get gear in Wrath because you can spam run dungeons. You don't have to. You don't have to just do it once a day. You can spam them and get as much gear as you fucking can. You can gear yourself up in a day, just by running dungeons.
I'm very curious to hear from people in the audience that happen to listen to the podcast about how do you feel about this if you are someone that is planning on playing both. Because basically this does mean that you can kind of just play World of Warcraft with the amount of content that is available to you if you are playing through Wrath of the Lich King. You can basically just play WoW and not play anything else. In the meantime, if you're playing on retail, I'm assuming you'll be able to take breaks, hopefully. That is something that they embrace. And I know that it's weird. It's like, what do you mean taking breaks? I want content forever. It's like, yeah, that's how you get Shadowlands. Maybe you don't want content forever. Maybe think about that a little bit.
No, breaks is good. Breaks is very good.
Breaks is very healthy and very, very good.
I think, yes, it makes sense that Blizzard is going for a more, like, let the other game pick up the lull state of the other game, right? Yeah. So they sort of feed off of one another, but also feed into one another. I think that's a good strategy.
Yeah, that was not my initial thought process. Like, it was literally just now. I was like, let me just check what was the roadmap for Wrath Classic, and I was like, October 6th. I was expecting it to be much later. I was expecting it to actually clash with the pre-patch, and I was like, oh, this is bad. But fundamentally, I'm also curious to hear from players that maybe have a busier schedule and want to play both and feel like, oh, I can't keep up with both. It's going to be a pain in my ass. Because I do feel like there's going to be a lot of players like that. I do feel like there's going to be a little bit of cannibalization. I actually, I was in Tali's stream the other night, and I asked him why he thought Blizzard did this, because they are extremely close. I think this is as closest of releases as we've had, although I haven't paid that much attention to TBC. But I think it's as close of releases as we had of like a classic expansion and a retail expansion. Yeah. So I was asking Tali about it, and Tali's idea was potentially because of the Microsoft acquisition, it could be Blizzard trying to make as much money as possible before they get bought out to Microsoft. But I don't know exactly how this works in terms of who gets the money at that point. Do they get to distribute dividends ahead of the Microsoft purchase to their investors? I don't know how that would work. So I genuinely do not know, but I wouldn't put it past them, that being the reason for them launching these two, particularly when you're launching both of them in the holiday season, which is historically, obviously, the most profitable season of the year.
Yeah. I can't really speak to the dividends thing. I don't own any gaming stock. I own a bunch of oil, bunch of coal, bunch of uranium, cobalt, shit like that, but I don't own any gaming stock. So I genuinely don't know how their dividend system would work. I don't think so, though. It kind of makes sense because Microsoft offered X amount per share price. And I think part of that deal means that Microsoft also takes over the entirety of the balance sheet. So they take over all of the debts, but also all of the profits. The shareholders get $95 per share. That's it.
But it's like, what I'm saying is, who knows? Because like the companies are still operating whilst the merger hasn't happened, right?
Yeah.
So they're still operating independently. So technically speaking, they can still distribute dividends among their investors?
It would all depend on the inside deal that was made, right? The deal that they made with each other, and it would also depend on what financial year the sale concludes in. So if the sale concludes in the 2022-2023 financial year, all profits made in 2022-2023 will most likely pass on to Microsoft because the sale concludes then.
Yeah.
If the sale concludes in the 2023-2024 business cycle, then all of these profits belong to Bobby Kotick
gets
and his friends.
another yacht. Yeah,
Exactly. I can see that. I can see that. Yeah, I think that makes sense. I don't know though, because at the end of the day, I didn't even think of this, but you just mentioned it, and that does give me, with the release working the way that it is, it feels like Blizzard is sort of playing very heavily into this. We want people to play our games and nothing but our games. We don't want people to be playing anything else. So we want people to go from classic to retail to classic to retail to classic to retail. This is a very short-term way of thinking about things, because at some point,
classic's
people are
gonna
getting
end.
tired.
And classic's going to end.
Not just that classic is going to end. You're going to burn people out.
Yeah, you're going to burn people out. Yeah, I agree. Because like one of the things that keeps me coming back to 14 is the fact that I don't have to play 14 if I don't want to. So it's like I can keep on doing my Monster Hunter thing. I can keep on, like, I've been playing a lot of New World, and then like in my case right now, it's like every Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday night I go and I raid in 14, have a blast for a couple hours. And then I take, at the start of the week, I'll go in and I'll be like, okay, got to do a couple of experts, got to get some tomes, gear up a little bit. But it's usually something that might take me like out of a whole week, I don't know, 4 hours, less than 4 hours probably, to get like fully capped on tomes and doing a couple of raids and whatever, get ready. And then I have like my 6 hours of actual hardcore raiding. But yeah, it's like, it's very little investment for the fun I get out of it. So, and I kind of feel like if World of Warcraft is going down that route, it could be smart for people that want to do nothing but play World of Warcraft. But it could also end up burning people out. So I don't know. But then again, who knows how much...
I think it's a risk. It's definitely a risk.
But who knows how much actual crossover there is between classic and retail nowadays. It's something that I don't pay too much attention, but I keep hearing people say that these are actually two communities that don't even like each other a whole lot. And I'm just like, that's kind of weird, bro.
No, I think that makes sense. I think the classic Andes are primarily classic Andes. I think Blizzard is trying to get these classic Andes to play retail as well, but I don't think they're getting a lot of success. And the reason for that is the games are fundamentally different. No classic Andy that enjoys TBC would ever enjoy Shadowlands. There's just, there are different games. Why the fuck would I play Shadowlands when I can play TBC, right? Dragonflight might be the one that bridges that gap. It might actually, because Dragonflight functions, at least mechanically, it functions very similarly to ICC or to Wrath of the Lich King. It is basically the same game functionally, because there's no borrowed power. It is the world. The world is important. You go into the world, you get what you need, you play for fun. There's raids, there's dungeons, there's PvP. Choose your poison and have fun. That's basically it. You make the choice, and the choice then determines how you're going to be playing. The game doesn't choose or force you into any choice that you don't want to make. So maybe it can be the thing that crosses that threshold and sort of bridges that gap between the two. But we'll have to wait and see, right? Time will tell if Dragonflight can actually do that.
All right, and so since we still have a lot of topics to talk about, we're going to start doing a little bit of a lightning round where we're going to try to be a little bit more expeditious. Expeditious, is that a word? I don't know, I think so. Basically means faster.
We're going to be fast.
We're going to try. We're going to do our best. It's like, but yeah, it's hard. So
I think we should do it this way. Wait, okay. I think we should do the lightning round this way, right? So you bring up the topic, and every person has like 30 seconds to a minute to
30 seconds?
give their thoughts. That's the lightning round, right? So if we're going to start doing a lightning round, because every single week, guys, and I fucking kid you not, every week, myself and Rurikhan have a list of shit that we want to talk about, and we end up covering like 3 things. And then next week, most of the list is fucking old news. No one gives a shit anymore. So the lightning round, you have 30 seconds to a minute to give your thoughts on it, right? Good, bad, whatever the case may be. Make your point and then next topic.
Right, let me just see something. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5. If you divide 30 by 5, you get 6. So we could actually have about 6 minutes. Let's say like 5 minutes per topic, which would be about 2.5 minutes per person talking about it.
All right.
So the first topic is Overwatch 2. You want to talk about Overwatch 2, you can start, and then I'll tell you what I think about it.
So there's literally not much to say here. Everyone knows my thoughts on Overwatch 2. It's not Overwatch 2. It's Overwatch 1.
I agree.
DLC of Overwatch 1. The reason they did this, and I need to say this because a lot of people don't seem to fucking understand, Blizzard made a promise with Overwatch 1 that all champions will be free forever. That promise is a promise that they can't go back on. If they change this, players can sue them. There's a lot of things because it's false marketing at that point. So Overwatch 2 gives Blizzard the opportunity to do champions not for free. You now have to purchase the champions. But more importantly, it actually gives Blizzard the opportunity to create far more monetization options than what was possible with Overwatch 1. That's the only reason this is happening. The whole PvE bullshit, the dream that people have about this was a PvE move and what. No. That's just extra because you can't call it 2 if you don't have anything to show for why it would be 2. Again, people can cause a lot of stink over this. So by adding enough things to change it, that makes it. But there's actually some bigger things here. And I'll just quickly touch on it, and then you can tell me what you think of this. So Blizzard is now forcing 2-factor authentication, not by asking you to add it to a 2-factor authentication system like Google Authenticator or any of those. No, by adding your phone number. You must add your phone number to Activision Blizzard Battle.net in order to be able to play this game. Otherwise, you won't be able to log in. That I don't fucking like. I know Google has all of my information, but they already have all of my fucking information. I would prefer if not more people don't have my information. And then here's the thing that I'm actually most worried about, and that is that Blizzard will record all voice communications on Overwatch 2 if it's using Battle.net voice. All of those voice recordings will be recorded. Blizzard right now says that no, it's only for the game, and if there's a report. If no report was filed within that game, the recording gets deleted. That's a claim.
True
There's no evidence
story,
that
bro.
will stay like it. Yeah. Anyways, that's my thoughts on it. I hate that.
It's like I'm completely against this level of overreach. Like you might remember back in the day, Blizzard came up with the idea. They're like, oh, you have to give you a real ID. You have to like put your real name in Battle.net, whatnot, because they were trying to reduce toxicity by adding people's real name. I think at the time, because I was young and kind of dumb, I was like, this sounds like a great idea. I don't mind. This is great. You dumbass. No.
Yeah.
No personal information. Thank you very much. Like in my case, it doesn't actually affect me. Everybody knows my real name on the internet. I don't hide it. I don't even try.
Yeah, I don't hide mine either.
Most people could probably find me if they really wanted to. It can't be that hard. It's just I happen to live in a place that is hard for people to get to unless you happen to also live in Portugal. So whatever. Good luck with that.
Yeah.
But it's like I fundamentally disagree with that. It's like what the hell? What kind of business do you have eavesdropping on people? Then again, it is kind of like in terms of the recordings. I don't think it's that big a deal because I would imagine that like 90% of gamers are going to be playing on Discord anyways, and Discord is already keeping your voice logs to begin with. It's like somebody's got your voice logs, bro. You ain't getting away from that in the internet. Like somebody else probably has the recording of this podcast right now simply because we're speaking into our microphones. But you know,
yeah, probably. But
Google,
I mean.
Google gets the early version of the Frozen Sodium Throne podcast before the edits.
Yeah, I get it. I think my problem is just that we live in an age where people can lose their jobs if they are deemed to have the wrong thing. And Blizzard being as left as it is, what is stopping a Blizzard employee that is overzealous?
Let me just leak
from
this
taking
thing over here.
Yeah,
I don't like
I'll
this
just
player.
send this to their boss.
Yeah.
You know, fuck them. You know, I'll just send this to the boss, or I'll leak this on Twitter
Basically,
under a unanimous name.
It's never good to have too much of your information out there. You should live with the assumption that it is very easy to gain access to your information, but you should also not make it as easy as just like, yeah, sure, take my phone number, and also feel free to record literally anything that I say whilst using your service and then use it against me. Yeah, sure. Go right ahead. Yeah. I completely approve of this. No, it's terrible. It's a terrible idea.
Chat logs, I understand, and I'm okay with chat logs because chat logs is chat logs. People don't have massive conversations in chat logs unless it's a forum. You know, no one's going to have a political conversation or a fucking personal conversation in League of Legends while playing the game, right? The problem is the voice logs that I don't necessarily agree with because there is so many opportunities for abuse there. And just because others are doing it doesn't make it right. I don't like the fact that Discord is keeping it either. The problem is I can't change it because it's already fucking there. I would like it not to be there.
It's going to happen, and people are going to accept it because like the Overwatch fan base, they're going to go wild for this. A big part of the Overwatch fan base doesn't even really watch content to begin with. They're going to just like, oh yeah, it's the new Overwatch game. Of course I'm going to get it. It's a no-brainer. Some of them probably don't even know that the game is free to play, and they're going to buy like a boxed version or something and get like, you know, whatever premium currency the game happens to be using, and a couple of additions to their battle pass. And the way that they're doing heroes, like we haven't talked about this either, but like the fact that they're locking heroes that were in Overwatch 1.
Original heroes.
Original heroes. They're getting locked in a battle pass of some kind. It's going to take you like 20 hours or something to unlock them. It makes
100 games.
It's 100 games? Okay, yeah. It makes no sense whatsoever. It makes no goddamn sense whatsoever. It is disgusting. Not to mention that, technically speaking, because they said that the skins move forward, right? The skins from Overwatch 1 supposedly move forward to Overwatch 2. So how's this going to work if you have like, you're going to have the skin and not have the hero unlocked? Like, this is so asinine.
Or the skins move forward into the battle pass. So the first few battle passes is just old fucking skins.
It's just regaining your old skins. It's like, bro, Blizzard is being so terrible about the way that they're doing Overwatch 2 that it is like beyond. Like it's just terrible. It's atrocious. Anyway, lightning round. We're moving on. Next topic: Final Fantasy XIV Job Balance. This is going to be a quick one. I've talked about this a little bit. I made a video reaction to the Xenos video. Basically, Final Fantasy XIV is experiencing some serious job balance to the point where some jobs were unable to clear the current Savage tier of rating on the first week. So like for instance, Xeno, and I know that some people are going to bring in the question like, well, maybe Xeno's not as good of a warrior as he thinks he is, when in reality, the warrior class is like so brain dead easy that you can slap your face on the keyboard and play a warrior just fine. It's not really a problem. Like warrior is literally the easiest or the second easiest class in the game to play. This is not even like up for debate. So, and Xenos is an extremely experienced player. Basically, in week 1, he swapped his job for a tank that dealt a little bit more damage, and they cleared the moment he swapped job. So it's like there is a problem with some jobs not performing accordingly. And this is something that we've seen in World of Warcraft at length in a much, much, much worse state. But it is also something that people are complaining a lot about now in Final Fantasy XIV, particularly with also another job, the Machinist, is greatly underperforming when compared to other jobs. And this is something that I'm very much passionate about as someone who's been on the receiving end of being one of the not viable classes a lot of times in World of Warcraft. It really sucks when that happens. And I kind of feel like, you know, don't let that become the fame of your game, because that is where World of Warcraft is. And basically what people end up doing is like, hey, I just have to play whatever happens to be the flavor of the month if I want to be viable, which kind of sucks.
Yeah. It's because you play a warrior, bro. You should play a black mage and a warlock and you'd be fine.
I don't play warrior, I play paladin. But thank you.
It's because you play a paladin. If you
Paladin's
played a warlock,
damage also sucked.
If you played a warlock or a black mage, you'd be fine. You know, hey, you get what you pay for, right? No. I don't have much to say about this. I don't play Final Fantasy at a hard level or a high level to have anything to say about this. I'm not even in Walker yet. So for me, yeah, I can agree with you on everything you said there. They should absolutely not go down the route of becoming famous for this, because once you're famous for it, you will never be unfamous for it. There's never a chance for that, because even if players are playing it wrong, so let's say you have a new spec or you've changed the spec and players are playing it wrong, they will complain immediately that it is unbalanced and underbalanced, and they will complain to the point where you will be forced to change it, even though it is working. But because you have become famous for being unbalanced, players will complain, because that's easier to do than actually trying to figure out why they need to fix things. So yeah, I do think Final Fantasy should be careful.
Yeah. So that's that's it. This is just like a very quick topic. I wanted to bring it up. Now, next topic. This is a very good one for the two of us, Accolonn. Do you know that? Have you ever heard about this cloud gaming service? It launched a couple of years ago. I don't know how many people remember it. It started with an S. Was it an STD? Like no, wait, Stadia. Stadia.
Oh yeah, the Google thing. Yeah, I remember. They promised that it's the one that they said is 4K gaming at 60 frames per second, and it just works. Yeah, it just works. I remember. Yeah, I was very hyped for it. When's that coming out, by the way?
It stopped working.
All right. Fuck.
Stadia is dead, ladies and gentlemen, and it's almost like I remember the live stream that I did that when they announced Stadia, and it's funny because I saw in a Twitter post somebody put up a Twitter post saying this is how they opened up the Stadia gaming presentation, by the way, which was like Google CEO comes out and he's like, "I'm not much of a gamer," and then well, that explains it now, doesn't it?
Yep. This makes sense to me.
Yeah,
you're not much of a gamer.
I was watching their. I did a live stream when they launched the service, and I was watching it. And the people presenting, like, you know how sometimes when you're talking and stuff, every now and then you look at the camera as in to establish eye contact with your audience. Yeah. Like every now and then you do that as a natural part of you, just like presenting an argument or something, right?
Yeah.
The dudes presenting this never once looked at the damn camera, and I was like, why can't you look me in the face? Look me in the face, motherfucker. It's like,
because they're lying. They knew they were lying. They didn't want people to see the lies in their fucking eyes.
No, it was so what happened here was like they launched this product and everybody pretty much predicted that it was not going to be particularly successful and that Google was going to abandon it because Google just has a reputation of abandoning things. Like Google has probably launched like, I don't know, over 100 projects which they've abandoned. Yeah. It's just you only hear about the successful ones like Google Drive, Gmail, all of these products that they launch. And then they have a bunch of products that they launch that they kill off a couple of years later because they never really devote themselves to it. So they marketed Stadia for a little while, and then they didn't market it anymore. And it was whatever. The fact of the matter is people are not ready for a cloud gaming service that is exclusively cloud gaming. Like you want to have cloud gaming as kind of like an alternative. So for instance, I actually use streaming. I actually sometimes use streaming as a gaming thing on my PlayStation 5. So like I'll hook up to a PC because my PlayStation 5's at home and I might like play a game for a little while or set the console or do something or whatever. And I can do that and it works fine. But that's only because I know if I want to, I can go get the actual thing. I don't have to just do streaming. So streaming is good as a complement. Like if you think, for instance, of the Xbox, that is very good. You have access to the Xbox Cloud. You have access to all of these video games that you own with Microsoft, which coupled with Game Pass is beast mode. And you basically have access to all of these things across multiple services. But when you want the real thing, you go and you play on your Xbox and boom, and it's there.
Yeah.
The whole cloud-only thing is most likely never going to work because internet technology is not there yet. The latency is always atrocious, even in the best of service. Like I always, whenever I get somebody tell me like, oh no, you don't understand, the latency is actually really good, I don't even feel it. And I'm like, that just probably means you're not a very good gamer. I'm sorry. Like, I'm sorry that you can't tell the difference. Probably means you're not that good. Like, I'm sorry, because if you were good, you would instantly notice the latency of streaming. Like, I can play Monster Hunter live streaming through the cloud, And I can instantly tell that I need to do my inputs in a different way to execute the different moves because of latency. I have to compensate for the latency, and it's not as good of an experience, and it is never going to be.
It's logical that it's going to be, because at the end of the day, it's not about internet speeds, which is what a lot of people pointed to. Internet speeds is important because there is actual data packets being sent. The faster they can be sent, the better. But it's also just about the pure latency of the thing. Now, I said this way back when Stadia came out. I said, this is going to be fucked for the third world. Because anyone that lives in a country that doesn't have 1 gigabit per second internet and also doesn't live right next to the data center is screwed. If you live right next to the data center, your MS is 1, maybe even 0, which means you're not having any latency because that shit is on. The communication is 100. If you live further away, there's going to literally I think it's after a kilometer, every 100 meters that you move away after a kilometer, you're adding X amount of MS to that connection that will show up in your game. We're not there yet. Internet technology for cloud gaming exclusive to become a thing, we would need almost quantum internet. And when I say quantum internet, I'm not talking about, because we have quantum internet, light particles, fiber is quantum. I'm talking about quantum entanglement internet. So we need that internet where something happens here and it's instantly over here, which is what quantum entanglement theory is, right? It's 2 particles that if you change the spin on this one, it automatically changes on that one, regardless of how far away they are from each other. The experiment actually showed it on opposite sides of the world. They had 1 particle here, 1 particle on the opposite side of the world. They changed the spin on this one, it instantly changes the opposite way on the other one. If we have internet like that, cloud service gaming works, right? Because who gives a fuck? It doesn't work now. No, we don't. It doesn't work now.
And there was another major problem with Stadia, and that was the way that the service operated. So like, even if you take away the latency and all of these problems that we just talked about, the way the service operated made no sense. Because like, I don't remember if you had to pay a monthly fee. I don't think you did. There was an option for a monthly fee that would include a couple of games, but basically you were paying these games piecemeal, games that you actually would never own. And it's like, you're paying for them piecemeal, and then you have a service that comes out. And basically Microsoft at the time, because if I remember correctly, I was looking at the timeline of this, I could be wrong, but if I remember correctly, either the Game Pass was still in its infancy or the Game Pass was properly released after Stadia. So it was basically Stadia releases, and Phil Spencer takes Stadia out back behind the shed and puts a fucking bullet in it, and the bullet is called Xbox Game Pass, because basically it has everything that Stadia has, but it has a huge fucking library of video games, and it also has the possibility for you to actually play it on the console. It is just a fundamentally superior product in every conceivable way, and I don't even own an Xbox, and I can realize that, right? So it's just like they fundamentally killed Stadia instantly. So the service is dying on like 23rd or the 18th of January. It's at some point in January. They're shutting down the server. So if you have Stadia, you might want to get your play sessions wrapped up or whatever, and you can get a refund for everything. Now, the one thing that surprised me, they're not only refunding the software, they're refunding the hardware. At least the news article that I read said they're refunding the hardware, and I was like, wait, what? Because the hardware of Stadia is a controller and a Chromecast. Like, that's the Stadia hardware. It's like the Chromecast still works, and the controller, I believe you can still hook it up to a PC or whatever. So I'm surprised. It's kind of weird. And it made me wonder, because I didn't dig too deep into this, but it also made me wonder, wait a minute. So you're refunding people, but how does this work? Do they send you the controller and the Chromecast back? Or do they just get to keep it? Because that's weird. That's weird. If you're just like, oh no, you can keep the Chromecast. You can keep the controller. Yeah. You're thinking like, okay, so now you have 2 devices in my house.
Yeah.
This is weird.
I don't know.
Weird.
Honestly, I don't even have Chromecast. I don't even know what
me neither.
It is.
I mean, Chromecast is basically like a small device that, imagine your TV is not smart. You don't have a smart TV. Chromecast basically makes it a smart TV with a Google store. That's it.
Imagine you have a PC that is already smart. watch stuff on your PC.
Yeah, exactly.
All right.
Yeah,
Why
but
would
it's
I
like
need a fucking Chromecast?
Here's the thing, right? Your PC is going to cost you like upwards of at least 800 bones for a decent PC, right? And I'm just talking about decent, not even like a gaming rig. A Chromecast is probably more like in the 100 range. I don't know how much a Chromecast costs nowadays. Let me see. Chromecast price. Buy Chromecast at Amazon, and it costs this is Nokia Stream. Jesus Christ. Okay. Wow. It's actually a lot cheaper than I thought. It's like 37 euro. 37 euro for, see, it's the difference between, 800 bones and 37. That's why the Chromecast is
I don't
cool,
even
yeah.
own a TV. So, I would own the
But
Chromecast for no fucking reason.
But you get the point, right? The Chromecast still works.
I get what it means.
Yeah.
I think people will probably be able to send back whatever they don't want. So if they want to keep the Chromecast, but they don't want it's probably going to be just a straight up RMA, effectively, or similar to an RMA.
I would expect
where you're
so.
just going to email them and you're just going to be like, right, I don't need the controller. You can send someone to pick this up, and they'll send out. I literally just yesterday RMA'd my keyboard because it fucking broke, and they're going to send out someone to come pick it up. That's probably how it's going to work, and then they're just going to give you the money back. If they really want to be bastards, they just give you the money back as a subscription to YouTube Premium or some shit.
Yeah, I'm curious how that's going to work out. But yeah, that's another one of the lightning rounds. Stadia is dead. Stay dead, Stadia, and stay dead like exclusive cloud gaming. Nobody wants that.
You will
Fuck
not
that
be
shit.
missed.
Yeah. So the next topic, I'm not going to tell you what the topic is. I'm going to pose a scenario to you, and I want to know what your reaction to the scenario is. Imagine you have a video game that provides you with a lot of value. Like they give you a lot of content, provides you with a lot of hours of entertainment. It's a fantastic video game. You love this video game to death. Now, they do paid cosmetic DLC, but you don't really mind that much due to the fact that there's always an in-game option that is of comparable quality to the DLC that they provide to you as paid DLC. So
are you talking about Monster Hunter?
I'm not revealing anything about what it is. But so there's basically comparable value there, so you don't really see it as a huge problem, I would imagine, right? If they have cosmetic DLC but they have comparable one in game, is that a problem to you?
No,
it's not a real big problem. But then they release a very special skin, which is a cosmetic skin. It is not for armor. It is for weapons. And this skin appears to be a little bit of higher quality than anything that is in the game. Now, this is debatable for some people. Some people will argue the game ones are better. But in my opinion, these weapons look better than a lot of the things in the game. And they have unique sheathing and unsheathing animations to them that no other weapon in the game has.
Yeah.
So like I said,
it's basically like an ultimate skin in League of Legends or an epic skin in League of Legends, which changes your ability, particles, and voice log. It's basically a massive skin. Imagine,
for instance, World of Warcraft. It would be the equivalent of somebody selling you the Thunder Fury skin, kinda. Maybe not as good.
Yeah.
Maybe a scuffed version of the Thunder Fury skin, right?
Okay, I'm following. Yeah.
So this is the scenario. How do you feel about that particular microtransactions? Again, remember, tremendous amounts of value in the game, comparable cosmetic DLCs up until this point, in-game available for just playing the game, and not even like massive grinds. It's just like easily obtainable cosmetic stuff in the game. And then they release this much more premium weapon skin that you cannot obtain anything, I would argue, of comparable value in the game. How do you feel about this?
It's difficult for me because I'm not obviously I have no emotional connection to the game because I don't know if I'm playing this game or whatever the case might be. But I would say
for the purpose
I have a duality of thoughts.
For the purpose of the scenario, let's assume you love this game.
All right. I still have a duality of thoughts. On the one hand, they've sort of broken the social contract, the unwritten contract that existed between player and company. Because the unwritten contract was that whenever you guys release a skin, there will be something comparable to it in the game. It might not be the exact same, but it will be comparable. So it will be of equal or, if less than, minuscule in its lesserness, right? Now they go and they release something that's a hell of a lot better than anything that you can obtain in the game. On the other hand, cosmetics are completely subjective. So for one person, this skin is like, oh my God. Another person looks at the skin and like, fucking looks horrible.
That is definitely the case.
Who gives a shit about this? So it could be that the developers made this skin, looked at some of the skins in the game, and they're like, dude, I much prefer this stuff in the game, so this is fine for us. So it might be that they've broken the contract for some people, but stuck to the contract for others. And then you have cosmetics, which people actually pay money for. Paying money for a cosmetic almost by design means that the person that took out money to actually buy the cosmetic deserves something that is at least a little better than whatever you can get in the game, just due to the fact that they did pay money for the thing. So it's difficult for me to know which side of the aisle I come down on, other than to say I don't like it because I hate microtransactions.
Yeah.
And I think that microtransactions are almost always fucking terrible for a game. I understand that they need to exist, and there are many games in which they actually make sense, especially games like, I will say, Monster Hunter, which you've told me about. When I'm looking at a game like Monster Hunter and I think of the incredible amount of work that goes into that game, considering there's no subscription service, it is just buy and play. They have to pay their developers somehow for all the content that they keep bringing out, and that's where microtransactions comes in. Even then, I feel like if it is that much better than anything else you can get in the game, it sets a very dangerous precedent for what the future will look like. Because as soon as you get into that, and people oftentimes don't think of things like this,
yep,
it sets the precedent for the developers as well. Because now the next thing they design for the game, they're immediately thinking this should be less than the cosmetic stuff, because the cosmetic stuff needs to be the coolest stuff we design, because that's what we want to go for. We want to push more cosmetics. And that makes sense, because if you keep releasing cosmetics that is only ever as good or slightly less than the stuff that you get in the game, you're not going to sell as many cosmetics. You're going to sell cosmetics when the cosmetics are a hell of a lot better than anything that you can get in the game.
Yeah.
So it's dangerous, I would say. That's my 2 cents.
Yeah, that's it is Monster Hunter. They did do that. They came up with a what I would consider to be very premium. It's not going to be to everyone's taste, obviously, but the biggest thing for me, like if the weapons looked exactly the way that they look and they would work like every other weapon in the game, I would have no problem. I'm like, okay, whatever. I mean, I'd have a little bit of a problem because they've never done paid layered weapons before. They've done paid layered armors, never done paid layered weapons. So I'm a little bit like resistant to the idea there, but still I don't have like a huge problem against that. But what really hammers the point home for me is the fact that they have unique sheeting animations that no other weapon has. So like they appear as a bunch of crystals on your back. And then when you sheath them, you pull out the crystals and the weapon kind of forms out almost like a lightsaber from the crystals that you've pulled out. No other weapon does that. Cool, actually. It is. Like, dude, it hurts me so much because I just like, dude, I want to buy that Gunland skin so fucking bad. It looks so good. It looks so goddamn good. And you're talking like, I already bought microtransactions in this game. Like, for instance, they put in a DLC pack that included songs of previous games. And I like the tracks of previous games so much. So like, fuck yeah, I'll pay like, I don't know, it was like €6 or something. And I got the tracks from Monster Hunter World and the tracks from Monster Hunter Freedom Unite. And I can now play those in the lobbies. So if you were to come into my lobby, it would be playing a music from Monster Hunter World instead of playing the music from Sunbreak, because I have a lot of nostalgia for those tracks, right? And I think that's cool. And I think that that's a value proposition, because it's like you can easily make the argument. It's like, well, this game already has a soundtrack and it has a good soundtrack. So this is just like additional things that you can get. The problem with these weapons is just like that very specific thing of the really cool sheathing, unsheathing animation. I'm like, this is not cool because there's nothing like this in the game. And that, like you said, it sets a dangerous precedent for what you can expect.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because like, if you, particularly with us, because we have the example of World of Warcraft, like if you think back to the Sparkle Pony, Blizzard puts one mount in the store, makes millions, potentially even billions. Who knows how much money they made out of the goddamn Sparkle Pony. And then a couple of years into the future, what do you get? I would argue that like 9 out of 10 times, store mounts are better than the mounts in game in terms of animations, in terms of art quality. I wasn't even going that far because like I've made this argument and I had a lot of pushback from people saying that like a lot of the in-game mounts are better than the store mounts. So I'm not going to make the argument like every store mount is better, but I will make the argument that like a lot of times when they come out with a store mount, it is definitely a much more premium mount than the shit that you can get in game. And most of the stuff that you end up getting in game is usually like you get one model and then 50 recolors of that model.
Yeah, that's the problem. And also, mostly store mounts have better animations, better particles, better effects. It's 10 out of 10. It's every single store mount is a hell of a lot higher fidelity than anything that you will get in the game.
That's precisely why I push back on the specific, like you just said, the keyword, particle effects. That's precisely why I push back, because no weapon has the particle effects of this DLC weapon, and it bothers me. It bothers me a lot. And again, I think it looks phenomenal. I think it's amazing art. Like, kudos for whoever designed them. They look fucking amazing. Like, I've seen a player playing with the gunland specifically, which is my main weapon, and I'm just like, dude, it looks so good. It looks amazing. I love it. But yeah, you know, it is what it is.
Yep. You're going to have to buy it, bro.
No. It's not. Listen, I want you to know something. I said, back when the first time that people started talking about the working conditions at Blizzard, I said, I am not going to play the Diablo 2 remaster, which by the way is a game that I've been waiting for over 20 years.
Yeah.
I will not play the Diablo 2 remaster until I know for a fact that there are better working conditions at Blizzard. I still don't know for a fact that that is the case, and I still haven't played it. And this is a game that I've waited for 20 years. Over 20 years I've waited for this game. It is what it is.
See, I will play a remake of Diablo 1, but not of Diablo 2. Diablo 2 was good, but I think Diablo 1 was better.
No.
Yeah. The story of Diablo 1 is a million times better.
Sure.
Than the story of Diablo 2.
I'll concede that. Yeah, sure. But the story of Diablo 2 is still good, and the gameplay was better.
Was it though?
What, the gameplay?
Yeah, was it though?
Yeah,
was it better?
Yeah, it was. The gameplay of Diablo 2, bro, was fucking amazing.
I'm not saying it wasn't amazing, but I don't think it was that much better than Diablo 1. Diablo 1's gameplay was fucking brilliant.
It was great, but Diablo 2 is way better. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. Final lightning round. We're actually going to get through all the topics this week, Accolonn. This is a record. This is a record-setting podcast. Everybody hit the like button 1,000,000 times over. Let's go. Final topic is yours, Cyberpunk.
Oh, yeah. We just have to talk very quickly. This is why I love CD Projekt Red. And I know a lot of people are going to say, bro, but they fucking launched the game in a miserable state. Yes, they persevered. They pushed through. They kept releasing content patches after content patches, fixes after fixes. And finally, Cyberpunk is one of the most played games on Steam. It has just surpassed 20 million copies. And the reason this is good news is it means
20 million,
more
really?
Cyberpunk. Yeah,
nice.
20 million copies sold. It is it's breaking records at the moment. And of course, I think this is the future of what video games should be. And this is what transmedia should look like. Because they have the game, right? They have Cyberpunk 2077. And of course, you have the books, right? You have the Cyberpunk 2020 source book and a bunch of other books that Mike Pondsmith have brought out. But then from the CD Projekt Red side, they have Cyberpunk 2077, the game, and then they just released Cyberpunk Edge Runners, the series, the anime series over on... I watched it. Very fucking good. The thing that makes it good and why it's so fucking amazing is it's an entirely separate story set in that world at that time. So it doesn't take away from the main lore in the game. You don't need to watch that to get the lore in the game. You don't even need to play the game in order to get the lore in the anime. It's just sort of seeing another side of this society and how the world has become in 2077, which is awesome. That's the way transmedia should be done. And of course, it's just leading to millions more players jumping into the game because the anime is so fucking successful. And my question is, why are companies like Blizzard not able to think of stuff like this?
Yeah, I fundamentally agree, particularly because like I've seen a lot of back and forth on social media about this, and it's like at the end of the day, I'm always happy if CD Projekt Red is able to get back to where they were. Because again, CD Projekt Red are the guys behind Witcher 3, and not only that, CD Projekt Red tend to do a lot of really consumer-friendly things. They're one of the few companies that still does the whole manuals thing, which most companies are like, no, it's too expensive. We can't possibly put a little leaflet in your manual. And then they fill the junk with fucking promotional leaflets advertising other video games.
Yep.
Fuck you. So like, I'm 1,000% on board with CD Projekt Red, hopefully restoring their image and, coming up with future titles and whatnot. I hear they're even working on Witcher 4 or something like that. So
yeah,
whatever.
Witcher 4 is a thing. Cyberpunk 2 is a thing. The new expansion for Cyberpunk is coming. It's fucking glorious.
So it's like,
if you're a CD Projekt Red fan.
So it's like, to me, particularly one of the things that most companies should take away from this is like, you don't take things away from your game to do transmedia. You add things into the universe of your game, which from my understanding, I haven't seen Edge Runners yet, but from my understanding, that is what they did. They didn't take any story away from the game to do the show. They didn't take any story away from the show like you said, you don't have to play the game to watch the show. These are two things that are separate. They just happen to be in the same universe, and it makes sense. And I think that is the way to do it. That is the way to properly do transmedia.
I'm not even an anime fan, and I fucking loved it, right?
Yeah, of course.
Loved Edge Runners because it's set in a universe that I have a lot of love for. Cyberpunk, the city, Night City, is just an incredible setting for a game. And the story is good. It's a very good story. I'm very excited for the future of Cyberpunk, specifically because of how CD Projekt Red approaches things. When CD Projekt Red picked up Witcher 1 or Witcher all the way back, right? No one expected, not even the creator of Witcher, expected the game to go anywhere. That's why he accepted a payment of, I think, $7 million. That was it. And then, after Witcher 3, he sort of went, wait, you guys made a fuck ton of money out of this game. Like, what the fuck? I didn't know it was going to be this big. And CD Projekt Red, being the good guys, actually settled, and they paid him more than, they paid him what they thought he deserved based on that title. And I think they're going to do the same for Cyberpunk. They're going to go balls deep in this. We're probably going to get many more Cyberpunk titles. And they are sort of one of those companies just on the consumer-friendly part of things. For a long time, they didn't have two teams. And I actually watched an interview where they spoke to the CEO of CD Projekt Red, and he said the reason they don't have multiple teams working on multiple games is they're not entirely sure how that would work from a quality perspective. Because more teams means you have to manage all of these teams. And if you don't manage them well, you end up with games that isn't of the quality that they think players deserve. Now, there's many reasons why Cyberpunk 2077 failed. A lot of it does have to do with management. Some of it has to do with just trying to force a game that clearly wasn't made for Xbox One and PlayStation 4 onto the Xbox One and PlayStation 4.
And there was also the QA problems with the QA company that they worked with, because I remember seeing videos about company that as well.
That was fucking disgusting and scumbag as well. And then, of course, just management shit.
Yeah.
But as a company, they're very particular when it comes to their titles. They're not like Half-Life 3 when, right? They're not like Valve, where there's just never going to be another Half-Life 3.
Yeah.
They have Witcher, they have Cyberpunk, and these titles are going to exist for a really long time. They're going to keep giving players stuff to play into these titles. So I'm really excited for this. I just wanted to mention that, a bit of a takeaway.
But anyway, that is today's podcast, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to wrap things up with one final question, not for Accolonn, but for you guys in the audience. And Borean Tundra, or Howling Fjord? That is the question.
Put
Anyway,
it in
thank you all.
Tundra, boys.
Thank you very much for watching this episode of Frozen Throne. Hopefully, if the South African government does not screw with Accolon's power grid, we'll be able to provide you with another one next week as well. Otherwise, It's like we don't know. It's weird because Putin went and started a war. Now there's power problems everywhere. Who knows? Maybe in a week from now, I'll be the one having power problems. But anyway, as per usual, if you guys enjoyed the podcast, hit the like button, subscribe, all that stuff. If you're watching in the audio only feed, then if you can like review it, give it a 5 stars or whatever the hell it is you guys do over there, we appreciate that as well. So as per usual, Accolon's links in the description of this video. We'll see you in the next one. Stay strong, stay safe. Peace out.
Peace.